We have to build the financial stability of families so they can expand and grow. It is absolutely critical for the future of this country that we do that.
Hey Chad, thanks so much for being here today at American Enterprise Institute. I'm thrilled you're here to talk about New Horizon Academy, which is a chain of childcare centers that you run that serve children from birth onwards.
Yes, thank you, Katharine. Yes, I'm CEO of New Horizon Academy. We're a Minneapolis-based provider. We have nearly 100 schools now in 4 states, Minnesota, Iowa, Colorado, and Idaho. Thanks for having me.
So you have an unusual story in how you got into this business. Tell me a little bit about how you became the CEO of New Horizon Academy.
Yeah, happy to. So my mom opened the first New Horizon Academy classroom back in 1971 in a suburb of Minneapolis. And my twin brother and I were actually some of the first kids enrolled in the program. I often say the behavior guidance policies we have are because of how we behaved back then. And I kind of grew up with the business, but I wasn't really sure I was going to stay, actually. And I was in law school. In my last year of law school, I became a young father. It was really that moment, becoming a parent, holding that little boy in my hands, I realized what my mom started back in 1971. There's absolutely no better place for me to focus my attention and energy and spend a career making a difference for kids and families.
So you decided not to be a lawyer, and you at that point became CEO of the company, or were you working alongside your mom?
Yeah, I worked alongside my mom. I had done almost every role in the company when I was a kid, from waxing floors to painting walls to being an aide in the classroom to various roles and leading different parts of our company. At that moment, it was just a decision. I did finish my law degree. I'm licensed to practice. I use it every day in business, but it was really that moment where I decided my path and my career was New Horizons. So I grew up in the business in different roles through vice president of operations for about 10 years. I was the chief operating officer, and then about the last 6 years I've been CEO of New Horizon.
So when you became CEO, what was the company like? How many schools, how many kids, what states were you in?
Yeah, we were only in 2 states. We did have some programs in Idaho, and maybe we had about 50 locations, 60 locations at that time. So we've nearly doubled actually in this last year. We've gone through our fastest growth. We've opened a dozen centers in the last 12 months, nearly a center a month. So we're in an exciting phase of expansion in an exciting industry that has so much happening.
And so tell me exactly what your New Horizons schools do. Who do they serve? How often? What hours?
Yeah, most of our schools are open Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., which is, the primary hours families need to support work. I think one unique thing about New Horizon Academy, we are really committed to serving all families. And so years ago, Minnesota used to be one of the best states to help even low-income families access high-quality center-based care. And I should pause for a minute. New Horizon has always been highly committed to quality. We were the first large provider in the country where 100% of our programs were nationally accredited by the National Association for the Education of Young Children, which is our gold standard, our federal gold standard for quality. We have participated in many studies on helping children's executive function. We worked with Yale on health and safety policies in early childhood to make programs better. We were the first provider in the country to work with the Institute of Agriculture and Trade Policy on helping children eat more fruits and vegetables. So we're really thought leaders in the industry on quality and doing what's right for children. But what's difficult in our industry is serving low-income children. That area has been dramatically underfunded. But Minnesota was a leader until about 2003. We were able to serve all families. We had schools located in very low-income communities. Proud of our work because those children, as we know now, the research says, make the greatest academic gains. And so in 2003, like many states, we were faced with a huge budget deficit in Minnesota, and they slashed all the funding. They took all of the supports to really have those or help those families access schools like mine that were really helping their children get ready for school. And that's really when not only did I care about and was the leader of my company, but realized I needed to get involved in advocacy. We're making a mistake here. I watched firsthand the impacts on kids and families as they lost access to good programs and they lost jobs and couldn't find quality for their kids. And really until recently, we haven't seen some of those investments come back. So for a long time, New Horizon Academy went from serving all families to serving only high-income families, because in early childhood, if you're going to run high-quality programs, the cost is pretty difficult for middle-income families. And I know we probably want to talk about the unique early learning scholarship model at some point that helped us recommit to the families that need us most.
So before we get to that, so let me just clarify, what are the ages of the kids that you serve?
We serve babies as little as 6 weeks, though that's uncommon these days. More families start about 12 weeks, and all the way through the end of 4th grade in our before and after school programs and summer school age programs.
So the younger children, sort of pre-kindergarten, so birth to age 5, they are mostly there all day.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
New Horizon is a for-profit.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yep.
I imagine you get questions about how, what kind of quality a for-profit is providing. So do people wonder whether you're in this just to make money rather than to improve the well-being of kids? And what are your comments on that?
That's a very good question, and it is a difficult thing that we face being in the for-profit industry. I think, though, when you sit around a table and you start explaining your passion for doing this right by kids, that starts to go away. It's about relationships, but every time there's a new advocate in early childhood, it's almost like you have to reestablish that credibility. But we are very committed. People can come into our schools anytime, see the services we're delivering. We have very low teacher turnover, very high parent satisfaction, and we participated in a number of studies showing how well our kids enter, how prepared they are when they enter kindergarten. So I think the proof is in the work you do, but I do think there is a for-profit bias that sometimes happens in early childhood. But doing our job well is the best way to combat that.
Do you think there are any advantages to childcare companies, childcare providers being for-profit?
I think the advantage about the delivery system we have, that just like you ask any economist, there are market forces that constantly push our programs to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our customers by, let's say, the service hours. We're open at 6 a.m. because parents need it. We close at 6:30 p.m. because the market wants that. And I also know that if I don't connect with our families and make sure that they're a partner in helping us raise their children, they can choose somebody else, which makes me look constantly at what my competitors are doing and ways to improve the delivery of my service. So I think there's a lot of market forces that we don't want to lose as we decide how do we grow and change the way we invest in early childhood, because I absolutely believe we have to invest more in early childhood and help support families' access to quality. But these, as Art Rolnick always talks about, we need to keep these competitive forces, because you watch the public school system and maybe very well-intentioned people have designed a system that cares more about the adults than it does about the children. And that's what I love about early childhood. I can love the children and put them first and really, and also care a lot about what their families need. And let's not lose that as we design a system. But I am perfectly comfortable saying we have to have quality. There has to be measurements of quality. We have to be committed to quality, because care is not helpful to children if it's not quality. It's actually harmful. And so I think there's a way to keep the benefits of both, but we have to be very careful how we design the system so we don't forget the family.
So you mentioned Art Rolnick.
Yeah.
Tell me who Art Rolnick is, and I know that he was involved in starting a really innovative approach to funding early childhood that you were involved with sort of from the ground up. So tell me who he is and what that was all about.
So Art Rolnick was the chief economist of the Federal Reserve Bank in Minneapolis, and he was dragged into this early childhood thing by a board chair that I was with. Todd Otis was the chair of the Democratic Party on this board called Ready for K. We had an ex-Republican governor, Al Quie, an ex-Republican or Democratic mayor, Don Frazier, who all met him for lunch and said, look, we need the business community to get involved. We need more investments in early childhood. And as they were dragging him into this, he said, well, I want to look at the economic case. How can you prove the economic case? And that's when they started to discuss these longitudinal studies that were coming out, like the Perry Preschool study, which is very well known. And that's when Art went back, and I know the research is pretty clear that what they've done to validate that there's a huge return on investment when you invest in early childhood, and that really most of the benefits go to society, not just the family or the child. And that really changed the conversation in Minnesota, and I think Art's work has changed the conversation around the country, that there are some things that are worth government investment or public commitment to, and early childhood's one of those. The research is really powerful.
And so what did he do with that information? So then what happened?
Well, we all strategized on this board of Ready for K. How would we design a system that worked better for kids and families, worked better for the providers in the system, and that's when we came up with early learning scholarships. One of the great things about early childhood too right now, if families can afford it, is they get to choose what works for them.
So tell me, what are early learning scholarships? What just sort of 101, how does it work?
Yeah.
What is the thinking behind it?
So it's a parent choice model, and it allows families that qualify once based on their income to choose any provider, Head Start, a child care center, a family child care, a school district, as long as their program is highly rated. And that scholarship stays with the child once they get it till they enter kindergarten. And it's worked beautifully for families, because if the school district is right for you, if those hours work for you, sometimes school districts don't serve families the hours they need, then great, go ahead and do that. If that's the right thing for your family, if New Horizons the right thing for your family, you can come choose our school, and it may be because it's a location, quality, whatever it is, but it really respects families. That's what I love so much about it. And on the ground, we've watched it do amazing things for kids and families in Minnesota.
It's targeted at low-income families, correct? So what I know that it is, you've shared with me that as the scholarship, so well, tell me the history of, so it was started as a project of this business group, right? And there's a component that helps parents choose called Parent Aware, right?
Yes.
Which, as I understand, was taken very seriously and promoted widely. Tell me about how that worked.
Yeah, so it was really interesting. So the business community said, Art brought the business community together and said, I have this concept, and I'd like us to test it, and I don't want government interference. As a matter of fact, when they first put it together, they were going to put some legislators on this Minnesota Early Learning Foundation board. I was actually going to be one of the members too, and they said no providers and no politicians. We're going to come up with our own plan.
Just the business community.
Just the business community. And they put in $20 million of their own money. They selected 4 areas in the state of Minnesota and said, we're going to pilot these scholarships. We're going to evaluate the children and see how they do. And he did convince me, though, to build a school in one of these pilot areas. And so we
build a school.
To build a school, so we could be part of the project in an area north of St. Paul. So we built our Rice Street School there. We were part of the pilot project. The children attended these schools. They saw not just New Horizon located in the area, but other schools in the area expand services.
This had been a low-income area that had fewer child care providers previously.
And then they assessed the children, and they did wonderfully in almost every skill level. And we took that evidence to the state, and the state began investments in early childhood. But you asked, it's not just about bringing resources. There has to be a measure of quality. As I mentioned, we know enough about brain development to know that children have to be in a quality environment. It's only quality that achieves results. And so at the very same time we were investing in early learning scholarships, you mentioned, we created a program to evaluate quality called Parent Aware. We had some groups come together to try to identify the areas of quality that should be measured and evaluated. We also created a system in Parent Aware that helped providers who got into the program had additional resources to help them move up the levels of quality. So we had to do both of those pieces together. Otherwise, if you're just giving scholarships and sending parents to any private provider and there aren't measurements of quality, you won't get the same results.
And how parents have a hard time choosing, right? They don't have a lot of information. They don't understand what the landscape is. What did you guys do to address that?
So you know, because you had the business minds together, they really thought of this in a very different way. So not only did we create Parent Aware, but they did a ton of marketing and advertising for a couple of years.
To parents.
To parents. You couldn't listen to a radio for more than 20 minutes without hearing a Parent Aware ad. But they put it everywhere. They had billboards, they had TV commercials that were making parents aware that we now have this system. And I can tell you as a private provider, not just in this Rice Street location, because my schools were 4-star rated, we saw a dramatic increase in all of our schools because parents now had an easy way to identify, how can I find quality?
And so you mentioned that the business community piloted this with no government money or even involvement. The results are good, were good. And then what happened?
We brought that evidence to the state, and Governor Dayton at the time and legislators were pretty impressed by the evidence. And they began, I believe the first year might have been $40 million to...
This was a Republican-controlled legislature, is that correct?
It was, with a Democratic governor, correct. And that's the nice thing about this model with scholarships. It really is a bipartisan approach, and there's a lot of movement around the country, both Republicans and Democrats, that we have to do more. For particularly low-income children, I think there's a big agreement there that we want all children to come to kindergarten with the skills and abilities they need to thrive from kindergarten and beyond. The studies and the research, everybody's heard about, you know, Jack Shonkoff's brain research to Art and others validating the Perry preschool study and other studies of intervention for children, disadvantaged children. If they get high quality, they come to kindergarten on an equal footing with a real opportunity to thrive. And that's what we want in this country, is opportunity for our children.
So, as you know, the national profile of childcare has been raised pretty dramatically in the last few weeks. The Elizabeth Warren proposed a federal child care bill as a part of her platform, which $70 billion a year. On February 26th, I believe they're expecting that the child care for working families is going to be introduced in the House, 30, 40, 50 billion a year. What are your thoughts from your experience in Minnesota for how we should be thinking about this? What advice do you have for our country as we are just starting to tackle scaling our childcare systems up and making them accessible to more children?
Well, I would say we need to do something. These proposals are pretty significant, and sometimes people put out bills a messaging bill that really can't practically happen. I really think we have to make a giant step forward on early childhood.
And why? Why do you say that?
A number of things. One, 2017, we had the lowest birth rate in 30 years. But we need in this country our families to feel financial security so they can grow their families. And right now, young families or families in these prime childbearing years are stressed. Even the New York Times asked families, why are the birth rates going down? And they said the number one reason they may have less children or no children is the cost of childcare. And I think we've kind of done a little bit of a disservice. We told families now quality matters. We told them their children should be in a high quality program. But for most of those families, what we told them they should have for their children, they can't afford. And there are moments where we should intervene. We know the demographics are changing in our country, and we know that a big part of the federal government is supporting our seniors. We need these young families not only to grow and expand, but to feel confident they can stay in the workforce if they choose to. So more intervention is needed, and I think a lot of well-intentioned politicians realize the problem is large. But I would caution anyone from, one, proposing something that we're never going to have enough money to do, and two, if we do this too quickly and don't do it with high quality, it won't work for kids. And the problem with a massive investment in early childhood is we didn't build the workforce. The workforce is a difficult part. We don't have a lot of people going in to get education degrees. For those of us in early childhood, we've had to find and develop our own systems of growing our own. We bring those interested in early childhood in as an aid in the classroom. If they're excellent with kids, we help them go back to school and get degrees. So I think we have to be really thoughtful in the design, because just providing care for kids does not help them. If you look at the research, they can actually cause harm. You need well-intentioned, well-trained staff that know how to have high-quality adult-child interactions. That's the key to early childhood. It's the relationship with the adults around you. And so I would say we can dream big, but we have to do this well. Whatever we do well. And the other thing is, we've shortchanged our low-income children in this country. We've underfunded the Child Care Development Block Grant. Many states pay, the rate they pay for child care is so low that you can hardly pay the teachers less than minimum wage. I mean, you look at the average hourly rates that we're paying child care centers and family child care around the country, it's less than we pay a babysitter to watch our kids, basically watch our kids. Maybe they're not even doing that, right? Well, we're out at a movie on a Friday night. And so we do have to really think about we have to do more. We have to do more. Families don't have financial security. You know, I've made comments around that, you know, when Roosevelt said science, Social Security, our whole country was concerned about the financial health of our seniors. It's time for a package of family security. We have to build the financial stability of families so they can expand and grow. It is absolutely critical for the future of this country that we do that.
So let's say you got to be early childhood czar in the federal government. What would you do? How would you direct this effort?
Well, I would start looking at the early learning scholarship model. I think it's a really well thought out model. It really allows, as we said, parent choice that gives parents the flexibility of choosing something that fits for their child.
And it targets disadvantaged kids.
It does, and I would start there. I would start with larger scholarships for those families, but I would use that system on a sliding fee scale to give a little bit of help to middle income families as well, because they are the ones sometimes left out of being able to access the real high quality programs. But I think that model also requires a quality of programs. Like I said, it's not just access. Quality and access go together, and and children need that to thrive in this country. So I would say that model is a really good model to bring to the federal government, but start with our lowest income families, make sure they have a place, make sure it's a place that's quality so their child can enter the kindergarten classroom ready. But we do have to start thinking about strategies that help middle income families so they have real choice as well.
So when this group was launching the early learning scholarship model, as I understand it, one of the concerns that was expressed about whether it would work is that the idea was empowering low-income families to access high-quality care. However, those families lived in neighborhoods that did not have an adequate supply of high-quality care. So as I understand it, people were concerned that families would receive these scholarships and have nowhere to spend them. So how did that play out? You
know, that's a great question. The exact opposite happened. In the pilot areas, not only did New Horizon Academy opened a program, but many family child care and centers began the rating process immediately when they found out new resources could be available. So one of the pieces of evidence we brought to the state was showing how much more highly rated care was available. Head Start opened new classrooms. The school districts in the area expanded to new classrooms. And as another piece of evidence, after the state really started to step up investments in scholarships, I told you New Horizon Academy was really happy about serving low-income families, and the state stepped back its investment in 2003. Now that I'm confident that those investments continued, I actually opened 4 new urban schools in the last couple of years, some of our nicest, most impressive schools ever in communities that need us most. And in our 50 years, I've never had 4 schools fill faster than these 4 schools. So it showed these communities have been significantly underserved, and with this new money, we're not afraid to serve these children. As a matter of fact, it gives me great pride to serve the children that need us most. I know I had an opportunity to tour you through one of those schools just recently, but it makes me proud. And there are many other providers who are ready, willing, and able, but have not had the resources to serve the families who need us most. So that is one of the best parts about the market-driven early childhood system. The market will step up if the resources are there. They're just simply not there in most parts of the country.
So Minnesota invested a lot in developing the parent-aware system.
Yes.
The business community was engaged with that. It's something that's been so well publicized with families in Minnesota. Do you think it makes more sense for the federal government to be setting sort of a national parent-aware system, or do you think there is some benefit to be gained by allowing states to build their own systems for this?
So I think that's a complicated answer, but I can tell you nearly 40 states have begun a design of a quality rating system. It's long been suggested to use federal quality dollars to design a system of identifying quality. The new Child Care Development Block Grant requirements suggested that. And it's been a great thing because every state has had to have a conversation about quality.
Right.
As a provider that operates in a lot of states, it should look more similar, and I think that's what we need to work on. But I do like the idea that on the ground in states, people are talking about quality. How do we identify quality? But kids don't need different experiences in Idaho as they do in Minnesota, as they do in other states. So those quality criteria should look very similar in states. But the strategies to also allow and give families access to that quality is also something that states can be somewhat innovative with because each state is different. Each state has different demographics, are they more rural, are they more urban? So everybody has different challenges, and it's hard to solve local problems from Washington sometimes, but there should be guiding principles of what quality looks like. And let's not make this so complex that it's very difficult for providers to go through the system. So I guess I'm in between on that. There's some guidance we should give, strong guidance on what that looks like. There's also places like NAEYC, the National Association for the Education of Young Children. They have federal standards for quality. They have an accreditation system that's been well vetted and revised over the years.
And it's voluntary for providers,
and it's
correct?
Voluntary, correct. But it is also a really valid measure. We had a study done back in Minnesota in 2000, I think it was 6 or 7, that evaluated how do kids do that attend accredited centers compared to the general public. And we were showing at the time about 50% of Minnesota kids were ready for school in Minnesota. But if they attended an accredited center, over 90% in every learning domain were fully prepared for kindergarten. So we do have some systems out there that are already really good at identifying program quality, and we should be elevating those pretty quickly. So parents can get easy information like Parent Aware, where they can go online and find out the rating of their child care provider.
So one last question. What are your goals for New Horizon? Where do you hope to go? Where are you hoping to see yourself at New Horizon 10 years down the line?
That's a good question. We've been very careful with growth. I'm really proud of the consistent quality we've offered. Like I told you, being 100% accredited was really important to me. I want to be really careful that that consistent quality stays. And so I'm excited about growth going into these new states. It's been so fun to meet families who say, this is what I dreamed I could have for my child. I'm really proud of the schools that we build, the quality we offer, how we treat our people. I am really proud, and I do think we do something unique. And I want to grow as fast as I can do with consistent quality and high quality people. And right now we're in the most exciting time of growth in the history of our company, and I hope that continues. But if I don't see consistent quality in the new states we're going into and the new schools we're opening, I'm going to slow that down. Because I got into this and stayed into this because I care about kids, I care about their experiences, and I care that we're fulfilling the promises we make to families, that the children who attend New Horizon Academy are loved, well cared for, and we are teaching them academic and social skills that will last a lifetime.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katharine.
Hey everyone, that's the end of our discussion with Chad Dunkley of New Horizon Academy. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, remember to like the video or leave us a comment. And be sure to check out the rest of our videos and research from AEI.